This is Justin from Mournful Congregation. You're watching Northern Fury.
I'm Damon, the vocalist guitarist.
Justin, the lead guitarist and rhythm.
I'm Adrian, the drummer. Damon's the only original member from the band. Him and another couple of guys started the band in 1993 in their hometown in South Australia, which is kind of the state we're from. And they released the first couple of demos sort of around the mid-90s, and when Damon relocated to Adelaide, which is where Justin and I are from, I joined in 97, and Justin a year or two later, and it's pretty much been the same lineup for about 10 years till we went live. And yeah, we sort of operate live as a 5-piece, and yeah, we've just sort of hopefully consistently released stuff sort of over the last 18 years that it is now. So yeah, it's insane.
Because we were pretty much always a studio band. We never had the amount of people we needed to play live, because yeah, like we did, or myself, I did multiple instruments on the earlier recordings, and then even when Justin joined, we were a 3-piece for the Mournful Congregation album, the Gene Frost album. So yeah, we all did multiple guitar parts, and I did the bass. So we never bothered to sort of expand the lineup to a full live band until 2000 or late 2008. So yeah, but the actual decision to decide to put the live band together, sort of, I guess there was sort of a feeling that it was people were asking about us playing live, whereas I think in the early days no one really gave a shit if we played live. They were happy to have the records, but I don't know, that sort of doom metal wasn't really a popular live thing, whereas in the last sort of 5 years it seems funeral doom, or maybe longer, funeral doom's a lot more people are getting into it, and a lot more people want to see that live. So yeah, it just felt right.
doing an American tour in general is exciting. So I think it's going to end pretty big on festivals, so that's exciting in itself. But last night alone, just to have that done, I think the American term is you killed it. We know we did well. After that, you know, it all seems like it's going to go well. We'll see each state, see what it's like. But definitely excited for the end. There's also a show in Austin, which is going to be good. There's what's the double bill where there's it's that El Paso. We've got some other Australians touring a night ahead of us, so we're all congregating for that show, and that's going to be a massive night, and that's before the festival. So it's going to be pretty exciting around then.
It's a lot more similar than people might think, though. I think in a lot of ways, is, you know, apart from cars being on the other side of the road and stuff like that, it's very similar. So yeah, it's, I don't know about you guys, but it's kind of what I imagined it to be. But then we see a lot of, you know, American TV and that kind of stuff, so it's not really like we're under any illusions that it's going to be particularly different. So pretty much what we expected, yeah.
We went to the same studio we recorded the June Frost at to begin with, and laid down the drum tracks, a bunch of the guitar tracks, over a few days, and then took it home to my home studio, and then overdubbed from there, like vocals, extra guitar parts, and I worked on it. Then we went back into the studio, laid down the bass, so it was over a bit of a period of time, and then once we had everything recorded, then we spent quite a few months mixing it at my house as well.
So most of the productions
So
at your home?
yeah.
Okay.
Self-produced.
Yeah, you could say that, yeah.
That's awesome.
So, and because of that, we had a lot of time to spend tweaking it to our satisfaction, which is pretty close to what I originally envisioned, what we ended up with, but we could have kept going for more months tweaking it, but But it took about 8 months all up from when we started laying down tracks until it was finished. Hey, I've been friends with him for ages, and he studied graphic design and artwork, and sort of I lost contact with him for a few years, but we met at some stage and he got back in contact with us and just offered to do that sort of work for us, graphic design, and he's a photographer as well, professional photographer. So yeah, we're good friends anyway, but so it's great to have someone who lives close by that we can work hand in hand, and he's right into it. And we tried to use our traditional style of symbolism, but in a sort of fresh way that would relate to the sort of concepts. It was sort of, the symbols was the beginning of it, and then we added to that with the help of Pat and Sean Schock as well, who did all the inlay art for us, who's he's from US, I don't know, he's here tonight, but I don't know what exact city he's from, sorry. There was, I guess you could say, the band, Pat and Sean, all of us putting our heads together and going with the concepts, and that's what we ended up with. The title track, The Book of Kings, there's a concept to that, but each song's sort of got their separate concepts, so it's, you couldn't say it's a whole concept album. It's sort of a concept that we haven't really dealt with before, but it all ties into the traditional mournful styles, so it's still not any sort of modern thing, obviously. It's to do with the lineage of man on earth, king being ruled by kings, being ruled by gods, and the sort of hidden secret occult history of mankind and earth. So it's a pretty grand concept you're dealing with there. So I mean, it's just, that's an interest, so it all came out in those lyrics.
The first thing we started noticing favourable reviews pretty much online across the board, so we knew we were doing something right. As far as awards and things, well, it's the time of year, everyone does their top albums. So we knew we were, if we were getting good reviews, this is going to be something. We were just talking about that the other day. And yeah, we didn't know. Did you guys know about the Decibel one? I didn't know that we were voted top 3, so that's great news. And if we're getting those sort of awards in America, we know we're doing. We've got fans and the press like us, magazines. Obviously we're writing music for ourselves, so to get these sort of awards is great. It shows the appreciation, and it means we'll be back and doing more in America.
That was basically just an idea to kind of get one package that has a lot of things that people that might be into the band might have missed out on. Like there are some 7-inch splits, probably the best part of 10 years ago, that were released on vinyl and in limited runs. So it kind of made that available to people that might be interested in it, but never got a chance to get them before they sold out. So it was more or less just putting 5 songs that transcended probably a 10-year period.
Just want to have a collection, it sounds like.
Yeah, they were scattered all over the place. It just brought them all together, and gave people the opportunity to have it on that format. And plus there was a cover of a Thogothan song that we'd done that was released on a Russian label. So just it's fairly obscure and underground. So it just kind of gave people an opportunity to experience a bunch of different tracks that weren't on the full-length releases.
It was inspired sort of by looking back at some of our early stuff when it was just straight out sort of depressing lyrics. Because, in the early days, or the very early days, it was just, how can we just encapsulate depression in lyrics? Pretty straightforward, And so, it was sort of a look back at those times and trying to just put that into lyric form. But it's not from a personal standpoint. It's like the depression of mankind that afflicts. It seems to be a part of our psyche, and it's universal. So that's, once again, it's making a concept like that as grand as possible, I think. Yeah, well, actually that song was the first song we recorded when Justin had joined the band. So that's, I think you can tell, suddenly the guitar arrangements get more elaborate, and Justin enters. So that really
Grandiose.
yeah. And well, I don't know, do you remember that period?
Yeah, absolutely. I joined late 99, and pretty much that was the first song and recording. I started kind of understanding Damon's approach and angle. We had, I guess, back in those days, we didn't have the things we have today to compose and to learn. It was a lot harder, tapes and physically writing things down. Most of us are musically trained as well, so it was no problem that way. And I think having heard the older material, which I really liked, and Damon and I liked a lot of similar bands, pretty much I could tell the approach, and also a lot of progressive and classical music we liked similar to. And it just all gets put together in this song, which we still play today live because it's got everything. I think we were saying that before, it's going to be a hard one to take out of the set list if we do. And I think, that's really the beginning of the band being more of a band than a bit of a project. Although there was a band to start with, of course, with the demos in Loxton. And that's... it's great to be a part of that starting then, and it's great to see it go from a single 7-inch recording to 4 albums and 2 world tours. You wouldn't have thought back in 2000 I think it was 2000 when we recorded it, and Monad as well. Only a few years later we started recording, but it came out 2005 and just sat there for a while. Then the excitement started a few years after that. It just slowly evolved, and it's been a slow approach, but now it's really going quick. Ever since we played live, 2009. So. I think with Doom, it's always been there, but now I think slower tempos and down-tuned, heavy, dark music is acceptable from anyone, potentially, and we like to keep it music. We've got a lot of different musical influences, and we don't. How can I say we have a unique blend, and it comes out in the music, and I think that we're honest to what we're trying to do and not really restricted, so therefore we're coming to these tours and the albums with a natural sort of focus that comes through in the music, and putting the emotion in is one thing though. You've got to dig deep for that, and when you record and play live, if you don't show that, because the thing with doom metal, if you don't have that feeling, I think a lot of metal that doesn't reach those dark feelings that doom does, and that's my appeal to it, and I think we've done that in a live sense and on record.
Obviously, when Justin and I joined, it was already underway. I think Damon and Ben, when they started the band, were quite inspired by Candlemass and those kind of bands. You know, like the doom scene was already happening at that stage, but the intent was always to kind of push the envelope a bit, to kind of take it as extreme in a way as we could. And I think doom is just one of those genres where kind of emotionally and atmospherically you can keep pushing it. You know, you can keep evolving this style, and that's pretty much our mission. You know, not to compromise on the extreme front, to actually kind of take it more extreme. I think this new album is darker than ever before, and that's kind of been our intent, to not compromise what we're doing. And but yeah, the evolution of the band is probably just a reflection of the style, that nothing happens fast. We've just slowly evolved over time, and maybe people have kind of come to understand it over a long period of time as well. I think we were just trying to take, it wasn't like when you talk about extreme and darkness, they're not the only emotions or states involved. You know, it was just trying to heighten the ability to kind of musically capture despair and anguish, but also, yeah, that beauty. You know, the way the guitars work, there is meant to be that emotionally draining sort of aspect to it, to maximise the response. So yeah, it's kind of how I perceive it.
Yeah, well, actually, definitely you've hit the nail on the head, because that was the exact sort of mind frame we started the band with. Like, obviously, probably the first doom album that hit us was Epicus Doomicus Metallicus by Candlemass, and then the sort of early 90s doom, like Cathedrals, Forest of Equilibrium, Anathema, Serenades, those sort of albums. But yeah, they had songs that the last song on Forest of Equilibrium is, to me, the perfect doom metal protege, but the whole album wasn't like that, and so we wanted to take all those extremist aspects of all those bands and make it more extreme. And yeah, the death metal sort of bands like Disembowelment, who were doing that doom metal style in a more low, extreme death metal sense, but yeah, they were never quite extreme enough for us, so that was definitely our mind frame. Let's do this but make it more extreme. I mean, it started with the traditional heavy metal, you know, Iron Maiden. So yeah, I feel lucky that I grew up in the era when heavy metal turned, and then thrash metal came out, then death metal, and then all the subgenres. So yeah, I mean, really, I've been a metalhead since a young age and gone through all those, and still love all that stuff. So.
Oh yeah. Do you remember the first record you purchased?
The first original cassette tape was Iron Maiden. So good place to start, I think. Do you remember your first metal purchase?
Geez, what tape? That's very hard. It was.
Are we talking 8-track tape?
No, cassette tape. Yeah,
like,
cassette
it's
tape.
Elvis,
Not
isn't
quite
it?
that old.
No, I'm not that old.
That's right.
It's probably, for me, it was probably Led Zeppelin or something. But yeah, talking about influences, I I grew up listening to a lot of classical music from my parents. Things like Chopin and Wagner and Beethoven were just inside me. And I think that comes out in our style of metal a lot. People don't realize, but metal really can be traced further back. But as far as what we know metal, particularly Doom, it had to be the Peaceville Records bands for me. Anathema, My Dying Bride, Paradise Lost, they, for me, had a special brand of melody and harmony that hit the right emotional response for me, and I still admire those records, and that's something that us three had in common. Not many, it wasn't like a mainstream thing, and I found with Adrian and Damon, they were fans of these albums, and I didn't really know too many others, so it was kind of a bit, it was going to naturally happen in Adelaide, in our town, so it's great that it did, because we all know where that comes from, and we naturally can play those styles because we grew up listening to it. And I think other influences, well, it's one of those things, we explore things from progressive. It doesn't matter really, if the style's got the emotion, I think we're going to be listening to it and be influenced by it.
Yeah, for me, like, I basically wasn't, when I was a little kid, like all the sort of 80s commercial metal, you know, I liked it. I was always drawn to the heavier stuff, but I think the first thing I got, and that sort of changed me probably as far as drumming and my approach to music, was Beneath the Remains, when I got that and saw that, wow, this band's just, this isn't, I'd never heard anything like it at the time, and I pretty much just went from there, exploring the sort of more extreme genres, I guess, and that was, yeah, what shaped me, I think, in a lot of ways. It started at that album.
You heard that and you're like, were you playing drums prior to that?
Yeah. Not very long though. Like, I was pretty young when I first heard that. But yeah, it was such a change, because, you know, when you're just hearing, like, you know, at the time, like, sort of more commercialized Metallica, or, you know, like, by the late 80s, early 90s, it had sort of become a bit more commercial, and yeah, Guns N' Roses, all that kind of stuff, and then, yeah, when you suddenly hear this raw Brazilian band, it's like, wow, okay, you know, but the way it was done, it was very inspiring. So from then on, I just sought out all the most full-on death metal and doom metal I could find, and never looked back. I'd say probably the metal scene's fairly strong and united. There's not really a great deal of doom bands. There's a few, but I wouldn't say there's a doom scene as such or anything like that. Because we live a long way apart, like, you know, from us to the next city is, you know, 10-12 hour drive most of the time. So even something, you know, like us in a band like Portal, you know, we'll live 3,000 kilometres apart, and you might not see each other very often, but there is this sort of camaraderie where when bands play in different states and so on, you know, you help each other out, because it's you don't just live down the road, and but I'd say it's quite strong and very united front kind of thing.
It's a healthy scene. There's scenes in Perth, Queensland, Melbourne. They have good live scenes with tons of bands, ranging from power metal to black metal. You know, it's all there. So, and the bands that go overseas and do tour, like Psychroptic from Tasmania, they go around. I'm sure they've been to the US and Europe. Yeah, they go straight to the top of the list of everyone's psyche in Australia. As soon as someone goes overseas, it's that mentality, because we are so isolated. Yeah, there's a lot of talent, so hopefully, you know, these bands make a bit of a career by making the effort.
Next year we're aiming to go to Europe. We're not sure how or when yet, but we're talking to a couple of promoters, so hopefully something's sorted there. Yeah, just let this album do its work over the year. Still work on writing new material as the inspiration strikes. So yeah, just let it go with the flow.
Anything to add? Well, I think we can only gauge one show in America so far, but I'm pretty sure we'll be back, maybe on a new record, maybe on the East Coast, I'm not sure. I think we'll be doing a lot of touring if the music does well. That's just how it goes. Looking forward always to new material, and yeah, just really have enjoyed the American people so far and their response to our music. I mean, we weren't 100% sure, but everyone's really friendly and accepting, and I think, yeah, there'll be a lot more in store, but I do look forward to meeting the other Americans in other cities and showing our music to them.